What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Suave Q, and you guys are tuned into the Q Pill podcast, where we keep it 100 all the time at all times. Now, what made me want to do this show is I received a question on Instagram asking, should alpha males only date alpha females or should they date lesser? And I thought to myself instantly, what the fuck is an alpha female? Because, of course, we're familiar with the term and concept of an alpha male, but an alpha female is not one you come across too often. But I figured, why not break it down? Why not dissect it? Why not analyze it and see if we can define what an alpha female is and if it's a real thing? So without further ado, let's get into it. The alpha male, we know what he is. He's the head honcho. He sits atop the dominance hierarchy alone. He's high in testosterone. He's assertive. He's dominant. He's aggressive. He's intelligent. He's witty. He's charismatic. Highly respected by other men. Highly desirable to women. Pretty simple. And when you think of an alpha male in the context of a community or a group dynamic, Vin Diesel from the Fast and Furious series, he tends to be a pretty good representation of what an alpha male is and how his group responds to his authority. But what about an alpha female? What the hell are the constituents for an alpha female? Now, when it comes to the classification and ranking of an alpha female, you have to wonder, what is she alpha over? Because humans are sexually dimorphic, and because we're sexually dimorphic and men are larger, then men tend to be the dominant sex. And this is true in opposite for hyenas, which is a species that tends to be matriarchal because the females are larger than the males. So the female would be the highest ranking member of that group because she's the largest. So when you think about it in that context, you have to wonder, well, how can a woman assume the position of alpha in a community of both males and females when the males tend to be the dominant sex? And before I give my personal opinion on what I believe when it comes to the alpha female, I want to show you guys some pictures so that we can conceptualize what qualities, traits, and characteristics are associated with the alpha male and what qualities, traits, and characteristics are associated with the alpha female. These are just Google pictures that I thought fit the bill pretty well. So here we have an alpha male is the most dominant, desirable, and more successful than others. He's highly intelligent, he's fearless, he's a natural leader, he's a magnetic personality, he's super successful, has great intuitive sense, does not allow others to interfere with his life because he runs his own shit. He's goal driven, he knows how to charm a lady, there's that charisma. He's usually unemotional because he understands that when men are emotional, it can put us 6 feet under or in prison. So we absolutely have to learn how to control our emotions, how we respond to emotionally triggering stimuli. We have to learn to regulate our emotions. So that's a big one. Rarely admit their mistakes, and I don't want y'all to confuse this because alpha men tend to have accountability and they tend to delegate. But what I would interpret this as is we tend to be objective, logical, and thinkers as men. And it allows us to assess and analyze situations for the most effective outcome, which means typically the more thought and logic we put into it, the more accurate we're going to be in what the solution may be. Fast decision maker, not affected by criticisms. That's stoicism. I think that's imperative in an alpha male mind. Always sure to stay ahead in life, of course, because there are other men who want his position and he has to stay one step ahead of those men as well. So that's a summation of the typical qualities that you would see an alpha male exhibit. Now, I found this, and whoever made this needs a raise. We need to find the person who made this because they did an excellent job breaking down the alpha female and the beta female. And as you guys see, I scratched out alpha and beta and put masculine and feminine. I'll explain that why in a second. But let's look at the alpha female. What makes an alpha female? An alpha female is the opposite of the gender archetype for the female, i.e. masculine. An alpha female is synonymous with low value. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Low value. And I'm pretty sure it's about to explain why. three guesses why, but I'm pretty sure it's about to tell us. The alpha female does not possess optionality. The alpha female does not see her main role in life as love with a male. And there you have it. Because why would a male want to date a woman who doesn't prioritize loving him and being his support system and starting his family? Alpha females possessed a biased philosophy, progressivism, feminism, or moralism, and modeled the opposite gender archetype, i.e., masculinity. Prioritizes career over love. Love with the male is not her number one priority. Unwilling to please the male. Doesn't it sound like modern day feminists who are extremely unhappy by the time that they're 40 and can't find a man, and anxiety and depression rates are through the roof? Seems to align perfectly with the idea that a woman's purpose is to reproduce and pair bond, and when they don't adhere to that purpose, they tend to be miserable. See all aspects of life as zero-sum, meaning that for there to be a winner, there has to be a loser. They extend this to imply that the winner, therefore, is a victimizer, and the loser is thus a victim. And that sounds like modern-day feminists. The oppressor versus the oppressed. The patriarchy is evil, is bad. Yet modern-day feminists are the ones who try to emulate patriarchal values, the patriarchal mentality, patriarchal attitudes, and the patriarchal lifestyle. Man, isn't that a contradiction? Furthermore, they extend this flawed reasoning to male-female relationships, hence feminism, to economics, hence Marxism, and politics, hence progressivism. See love as requiring sacrifice, which is not consistent with reason and thus is not true love. She wants to focus on her career, her degree. Advocate philosophy of bias, including progressivism, feminism, and moralism. Advocate that there is no objective reality. And that's a big one because, of course, I just went viral, if you guys are aware, because there's a lot of major content creators responding to my Stop Arguing with Women video, Don't Argue with Women video, and it generated 2 million views between TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And this is why I said that, because they have no sense of objective reality, which means when you're having an argument and trying to come to a conclusion, that feelings are weighted over facts, and conclusions are typically logical, and they're typically predicated on science. And if a woman disregards those axioms in which truth are predicated on, then there can be no truth, there can be no solution, and you'll just find yourself in a cyclical argument that doesn't get anywhere but what's fair and what's unfair, what should or shouldn't be, and if you're a good or a bad person. Feminism comes from the philosophy of Marxism and views the world in terms of victimizer victims, especially male-female relationships. To them, relationships are zero-sum, meaning that there is a clearly defined winner and clearly defined loser. And I have no idea why women would want to perceive themselves as losers when they're in a relationship with a man who's larger and more powerful than they are, and who wants to provide resources and protect them, especially as the more vulnerable sex. I don't see the disadvantage in that, other than the fact that they interpret being a beta and being submissive as not having a say-so, not being able to say anything. Completely misconstrued idea of what it means to be feminine and submissive. They view true love as something that is not real and ultimately a negative thing for a woman. Feminists are hostile to reason, gender archetypes, and the love archetype. They're moralists to concept of sin and a non-scientific view of God. And progressive. They're hostile to reason, gender archetypes, and the love archetype. So essentially, feminists are off their axis. That's simply what it's saying. A completely warped perception of reality. They want to eliminate biological and psychological truths and differences between men and women that have stood since the beginning of humanity. They see the sacrificing of another's self-interest as a necessary component to advance their agenda, which is counterproductive. So that's the alpha female. Let's take a look at the beta female. The beta female. The beautiful beta female. She's feminine. Divine femininity. The beta female is the gender archetype for the female. Beta is femininity. Femininity is defined by a female's focus and passion in philosophy, love, and health. The beta feminine female sees her primary role in life as love with a male, so she understands her biological purpose. Beta is synonymous with high value for the female, because men are more attracted to feminine women, because feminine women are more willing to cooperate, compromise, communicate, and don't see men as the enemy like the alpha female does. She prioritizes love over her career. As I said, she understands her purpose. Love with the male is her number one priority. And that's a beautiful thing for you fellas out there who have had a feminine woman. And when you date a feminine woman, you see the way she loves you. You see how you become her priority, how you're the center of her world. She makes sure she supports you. She makes sure she's loyal to you and that she respects you. Passion for pleasing the male. It's beautiful. Applies the philosophy of objectivism and the philosophy of the alpha and beta. So she understands the natural biological and psychological realities and differences between men and women, and she uses those to her advantage to create a satisfying relationship. See, the beta female shits on the alpha female all day long. The alpha female wishes she could draw the attention of the beta female from men. Feminine women possess reason and behaviorally model their gender's archetype. Beta. They understand that women's rights and feminism are entirely different things. Women's rights come from nature and are protected by reason. Feminism comes from the philosophy of Marxism and views the world in terms of victimizers' victims, especially in male-female relationships. To feminists, relationships are a zero-sum, meaning that there is a clearly defined winner and a clearly defined loser. Thus, feminists view true love as something that is not real and ultimately a negative thing for women. To the feminine woman, there is no wrong or sin or victim in male-female relations. That means there's accountability. And of course, there's such thing as wrong because humans have a natural moral compass. But what I think it's saying here is that sex is natural and healthy, is that they don't play the objectification card that feminists like to play, that bullshit ass card. They understand that men desire them and they desire men, and that sex is a part of life. They don't try to make men feel guilty about wanting to have sex with them, like feminists tend to. Advocates and espouses gender archetypes, alpha for the male and beta for the female, and the love archetype. C, they understand the dynamic of men and women. Possesses reason and alpha and beta philosophy. Feminine body type with height 5 foot to 5'9" and weight 95 to 130. I agree with the feminine body type for height. I have a little personal preference for variation in the 95 to 130, although I have no problem with a 135-pound woman. I don't want to date a 95-pound woman. That's a little too small for me, though. Enjoys wearing feminine clothing, such as dresses and skirts. And they should also add, isn't on social media twerking for attention and likes, aren't attention whores, and aren't pretending to be workout gurus who constantly squat in the camera to show their ass to the thirsty men in the comment section because they want attention. They should have put that in there. Those will be alpha females. They see the individual as being sovereign unto themselves and that their own self-interest is the highest moral purpose of their lives. So in totality, I believe that's a good depiction of the alpha female and the beta female. Now, as I stated, you guys saw that I crossed out the alpha and the beta and put masculine and feminine. Why did I do that? Because my personal opinion is I do not believe that there is a such thing as an alpha female. Why? Because a woman's status corresponds to the status of her mate. Because men are the dominant sex and we sit at the top of the dominance hierarchy, a woman cannot be alpha. As a matter of fact, if you look at a group dynamic, the lowest ranking male still outranks the highest ranking female. And if she were to become his mate, she would then take on his status. So if he's a beta or a gamma, then she becomes a beta or a gamma by virtue of him being her mate. Also, as I said, men and women are sexually dimorphic. We're the larger species, we're the larger sex, so that makes us alpha over them by default. And as I said, when you look at, and the example I want to provide is when you guys, I reference Vin Diesel. If you guys watched the Furious 7 movie when they rescued the hacker Ramsey and she was assigning them roles based on what they did and how they rescued her, she looked at Vin Diesel and she said Alpha. She looked at Letty and she said Mrs. Alpha, attributing Letty's status to correspond to Vin Diesel's status. Now, if Letty wasn't his mate, then she would not be Mrs. Alpha. She would have no rank until whatever man in that group mates with her and selects her, and then she would then assume the role or status of the mate that selected her. Now, it's quite simple when you think about if alpha men should date alpha females. No, absolutely not. One, because there's no such thing as an alpha female. That's first and foremost. There's no such thing as an alpha female. And even if there were, why would a man want to date an alpha female? Because that would just incite conflict. An alpha female at the end of the day who has no objective sense of reality, who would just create conflict on the basis of her feelings constantly and feel oppressed, and that submitting to a man is a form of oppression and that she has no say so. All these distorted perceptions of what it means to simply be in a relationship and understand your role in a group dynamic. An alpha male wouldn't want to deal with that. There's a reason 50% of divorces are occurring in America, and 70% are initiated by women. These are women who have unrealistic expectations and who have distorted perceptions of reality. And more women are trying to become educated and focused on their degrees and become these alpha women. And they honestly believe that this is what men are attracted to and what men want. However, men, no matter his status, whether he's alpha, beta, gamma, or whatever ranking he has, men love feminine women. They desire feminine women. Why? Because femininity meshes. It's yin and yang. It goes with masculinity. Now, I will say, if you have a feminine guy and a masculine woman, they absolutely could work. However, women always have an innate desire for a man who's more alpha than she is, a man who makes her feel like a woman, even if she thinks she's actually a man. Because that's what an alpha female would technically be. It's a pseudo alpha male. It's a trans alpha male. It's simply a woman who wishes she had a penis, because then she would truly be an alpha male. But because she doesn't have a penis, she's not alpha in any sense of the word. And that's really what it boils down to. Alpha men should date feminine women, point blank, period. It's that simple. Thank you guys for tuning into the show. I'm Suave Q, over and out.